questions particular to North Carolina that we're going to start with. First, welcome. My name is Beth Nash. I am a test measurement specialist here at DPI. What that means is any of our high school or middle school math and science courses that have tests, so EOGs, EOCs, or check-ins 2.0, those are my purview. I do have a colleague named Michael Mahoney who handles the same job title, but for elementary. He is actually traveling to a conference, so I'm getting us started off here today, but we'll make sure you leave with both of our sets of contact information. Before we dig in, a few quick notes. Everyone is defaulted due to the size of the webinar. We currently have over 100 folks with about 400 registered. We are recording our webinar today, and we will be posting it to our DPI website probably next week. Anyone who registered, so whether or not they log in, if they registered, late today, tomorrow, an email will go out from North Carolina Public Schools, and that will have a link to this recording, and it will also have all the links that are shared in today's presentation, and you will be able to freely share that with others if you have folks in your school that you would like to share the information with, or maybe you just want to rewatch. We will drop these links in a moment, but we are talking about the featured calculator today, which is the 4-function calculator intended for our elementary school students. I will drop these links for you in just a moment, both the agenda and the slides. And we are not offering any CEUs for participation in the webinar today. And that's either if you logged in live or if you are watching it after the fact. I'm seeing some comments pop in, and this screen is for those of you who are struggling with technical issues. Due to the size of the call today, we do have somebody on staff to help with any technical issues that you are experiencing. If you will please use the chat feature to send a private chat to Stephanie Boyd. She will help to get you up and running. Please contact Stephanie and she will assist you to make sure that you are getting everything you can get out of our webinar today. We are going to attempt to use the Q&A feature if you have questions regarding the content of today's presentation. So if you'll pop those in Q&A, it makes it a little easier for us to organize and respond to, and we are going to reserve the chat just for technical difficulties. All right, one quick note related to to our online testing. So we use a platform called NCTest, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And after years of hearing from folks requesting it and us continually reminding folks that this is important to us, we are very pleased to report that beginning now for all grade levels, for all of our online testing, for whether it's a check-in or an EOG, students are able to enter in mixed numbers for gridded response questions. And so I've got a sample here. I'll send you in the email that I send, I'll send you a screenshot of this. But we know particularly for our elementary teachers, this was something that you guys have been asking for, and we are so pleased to be able to roll this out this year. So again, effective immediately, it is here for all grade levels. We're super excited. Next, this one, it's kind of, you know, we are also excited, but not a huge focus. We do have an increase in highlighter colors as well. So you'll see here, I kind of hovered when I took my screenshot. We've always had yellow, but this year we are pleased to add also blue and pink. So if you are a teacher who teaches your kids to color code, you do have additional options this year. And we know we don't always have these large audiences of teachers, and so we wanted to get this out there and hope that you can help us spread the word about these two new features. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nolan. I'm going to start dropping some links in the chat for you. I'll be manning the Q&A. If you have any questions, Stephanie will be manning the chat for those who need technical support. And I believe, Nolan, we're going to stop every now and then to address questions as we can. All right, and I am going to, oh, too many little windows here. going. Oh, where are you at? Hang on. Nolan, you are now presenter.
All right, let me get my screen shared for you all. I have to say I'm in Virginia and I'm jealous you have 3 highlighter colors. We do not have that luxury in Virginia, so I'm excited for you all to see that. Some of those small things make such a huge difference. But again, my name is Nolan Doyle, and I thank you all for being here. 3:30 in the afternoon. After a long day of teaching and working with teachers, whatever your role might be. I know it makes for a long Tuesday, but I am excited to be here with you. And as Beth has already said, she's here along for the ride as well, and kind of manning that chat or Q&A. I'm sorry, you're going to be using the Q&A for those questions. So please drop those in as we go. We will have time at the end for questions and stop periodically to address anything as we go. I am a classroom teacher. I'm a classroom teacher just outside of Richmond, Virginia, and been using Desmos for quite a few years. I'm also Desmos teaching fellow and certified presenter. So what I'm hoping to bring to you all today is a lot of expertise that I've gained by being able to be a teaching fellow and work with Desmos and work towards that becoming a certified presenter. So gone through a lot of trainings with them and learned a lot, but also kind of what does that actually look like in the classroom? So bringing a lot of my classroom experiences to the presentation as well. So that will hopefully be useful and helpful to you all today. So that's a little bit about me. About Desmos, let's just start with a little background. Desmos believes all students are brilliant, and it's our jobs as teachers to tap into that brilliance to help students learn math. They're also about, I don't like reading from a slide, but I love this statement here about Desmos Studio and those tools. We want to build a world where students' access to the power and beauty of math doesn't depend on their place of birth, race, ethnicity, gender, or any other aspect of their identity. So it has to do with accessibility, and it has to do with accessing the power and beauty of math. I just love that. So it is all about the math. It's not about the technology. The math is leading and the technology is following and supporting how we show and teach our students math. It's also, not about button pushing, not about answer getting. That's going to be something we really want to stress, that as you see some of the tools today, it's not just a tool to get answers. It's not just a tool to take a test with and work problems, but it's an instructional tool. It's a tool where we can get students doing more and thinking more. All the tools you see today are free. So the 4-function calculator can be accessed online and through the apps. You can also, once you have the app on a device, you don't need to be connected to the internet, or even if you open it up in a tab, like on a Chromebook, and leave it open and you get disconnected from the internet, you could still access and use that calculator. So that's one great thing about it. We're also going to be looking at some classroom activities briefly towards the latter part of the session. And so that's now part of Amplify Education, but those classroom activities and Activity Builder are also free. So everything you see today is free for you all and your students. So today's agenda, that bit.ly that's up there, and I think Beth's going to drop that in the chat if she hasn't already, but that takes you to our agenda. And so when you open up that Google Doc, that is yours to keep. Awesome, I can see people are in here, so definitely got access to that. So it's got our agenda with a bunch of resources, my contact information as well, other ways to get in contact with Desmos for support, and also some resources on that second page that we'll go through towards the end. But as we look at our timing, we're going to get through these introductions and jump into the Desmos 4-function calculator specific to North Carolina. And then we're going to do some teaching with Desmos and look briefly at some building with Desmos and those activities, and then some question and answer at the end. two main goals that I kind of want you to keep in the back of your head as we go. So one is to familiarize yourself with those Desmos tools, that four function calculator that is specific to North Carolina elementary classrooms. We'll look at where to access it, what the features are, how are those features maybe different than if you go just to the public facing version. And then what I think is more important is really to start experiencing Desmos as an instructional tool, going beyond, hey, this is the tool that students have on the test. How can we leverage some of these tools to help students better learn and understand math and on a deeper level? The learning goal will not be to become an expert. Okay, so we do not have the time to become an expert today, obviously. But what I want you to think about this session is it's going to be a lot of what can Desmos do. The how-to, right? That might take a little bit longer to kind of go through and how do I set up these activities? How do I run these activities? And you'll see that today as you see what can Desmos do. But the resources I provide at the end will really support you in those next steps in going back and kind of learning each of those things at your own pace. So hopefully you get inspired today, and then you've got the resources to support you as you continue your journey in learning. And you can reach out to Desmos, you can reach out to me. Hopefully you reach out to your colleagues as well as you continue that journey to learn and grow with these tools. All right, so let's jump into just kind of an overview of what the Desmos tools are. So if we go to desmos.com, this is our landing page here. When we go under math tools, you can see all the different calculators. So there is the four function calculator there, but we don't, you as educators in North Carolina, you're going to want to access the one that is specific to North Carolina. So there's a couple ways to get there. The easiest is in the Google Doc. I'll give you a link to some information specific to North Carolina, and this third link will take you directly there. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and access it under resources here. So another spot is if we go to resources and assessments, and we scroll down to this map, and we can find North Carolina. And so here's where, again, you can link to the four function calculator specific to North Carolina, as well as the scientific and graphing calculators for those older grades. And then this PDF, which I also linked directly from my Google Docs, so you have that, but you can get there from this map. And this PDF goes through what's similar, what's different for each calculator from the general testing from the testing calculator, and then what's standard for the public facing calculator. And what's great about North Carolina is you actually have extra features. You don't have anything taken away. You have extra things that standard calculator doesn't have, and that is the converting decimal answers to fractions and the fraction button. So I'll show you exactly what that looks like in just 1 second. All right, so I'm going to open up that four function calculator that is specific to your North Carolina test. And you know you're using this one because you'll see this green band at the top. It says North Carolina. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the other one just so you can see the difference between the two. So if I go to just the general public facing one, right, there's no green band, and you're not going to see the fraction button that you see here for the North Carolina version. All right, so most of the features are similar to a four function, what you would expect a four function calculator to do. There are a few things I really like that I want to point out. So I'm just going to start kind of clicking. We can add some numbers. We can subtract some numbers. And you can see I'm just hitting the enter button to get to the next line. The answer is populating even before I hit anything, right? So it's not waiting for me to hit this enter button. It's updating in real time as I continue different keystrokes. So every keystroke, it's updating and giving me my answer as I go through. So right now, right? And I love the error message too, are a lot more helpful than some calculators, right? So we need something on both sides of the division symbol. So we'll add something in there. Okay, and I've been clicking on the screen. I could also be entering these directly from, I'm on my laptop, from my keyboard. So you can use the on-screen keypad as well as clicking on the screen keypad here. And this is the feature that would not show up in the regular public-facing version. So this is specific to North Carolina. We can convert this to a fraction, and we can just toggle that back and forth if we want the decimal or fraction form. We can also create a fraction using the fraction button here. So it will give us, when I hit that button, it will give me 2 spots to put in my numerator. And then I can click down here and put my denominator and continue with any operations there. And once again, I can toggle back and forth between the fraction and decimal form. So that fraction button and this toggle button are those main differences between the public-facing version and your North Carolina version. The other thing I like is I can go back to any line, right? And I can continue to, or I can view it, but I can also edit it. So, back here I was doing 7 plus 6. Well, maybe I want to go back and, change something, and I can just change those numbers, and I can still calculate up here as well in the next line and the next line. So there's a little more flexibility in maneuvering through your different lines and revisiting old calculations that you've made that I really, really like. These arrows here are your undo. So I can undo a few steps. Maybe I go too far. I can redo some of those steps. That's what those arrows are there. I can also delete one character at a time with this X here. I can clear the whole line. And once I clear the line, then I'm given the option there to clear the entire calculator. One other feature I really like is the answer button. So I can, now that I've got an answer in the above line, maybe I want to bring that answer down to a new line, so I can hit the button and you can see it populates with the answer, and I can even see what that answer is there. And I could continue to do calculations with that answer. If I were to go back up here and change this line, right, it's going to update it. So now it's not 6 anymore, it's -4. And we could continue to use that answer button, either clicking it, and I can also type, I believe, just ANS. So I just did that with my keyboard. I typed ANS, and now I'm using the previous line. So I'm not using the -4 anymore. I'm using the line directly above it. Clear that out, and I'm back to where I started. Okay, so we've got the North Carolina version, what we can access directly from the Google Doc or through desmos.com and our assessments. I'm going to stop and check in with Beth and just see if there's anything that has come up as far as questions so far.
Yeah, so far we have been doing a great job of using the Q&A. So thank you to everyone who's using the Q&A for content related questions. We do have one that I don't know the answer to. Do you know if the Desmos calculators are embedded into Mastery Connect assessments?
Mastery Connect, I am not sure about that one.
Because I see on the webpage IB and MYP and then NWEA and Smarter Balance, but I don't see Mastery Connect mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I will write that down though and get you an answer of that.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so far that's the only one that I haven't been able to answer through the Q&A.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's jump back. All right, so we looked at our PDF, we looked at the calculator itself, and this is kind of my number one goal for the day. I think all that's important, right? We want to know what's available to your students, what your students are going to see on the test, and familiarize yourself and them with that tool. But really, when I start to see that map we were looking at and all those states that have turned dark blue, that are using Desmos on their end of course test, they're not selecting Desmos to be on their end of course test. Those decisions aren't being made because it's the best tool to take a test with. Those decisions are being made because it's the best tool to really teach and learn math with. And then if we're using that tool to teach and learn math, then those students should still have, some form of those tools available as they're being assessed as well. So what we really want to make shine the rest of the presentation is, how do we use this instructionally? How do I get you guys some ideas of what this can look like in your classroom as a powerful instructional tool? And so when we think about that, I like to think about the verbs, whether it's what the students are doing, what I'm doing as the teacher, but what can we do with the technology to get students predicting? How can I, as the teacher, use technology to invite some informal before formal observations from students? Those low floor, high ceiling kind of tasks where we can get everyone engaged, getting students to notice patterns. We can work together with students to identify and build structure in what we're learning, and lots of connecting of representations. I know that's huge for what I do with my students. And the more we can get them to connect those different representations, the deeper their understanding is going to be of the mathematics itself. So we're going to dig into some examples of teaching with Desmos. And in order to do that, we're going to make use of an activity from Desmos Classroom. Okay, so this is coming from teacher.desmos.com, which I'll show you how to access in a little bit. Right now, I want you to kind of remain in that student perspective. So you're probably going to have a lot of questions. Well, how did he do this? And where did he get that? And how did he set that up? And we'll get to that teacher perspective, and I'll be modeling some of those things. But I want you to kind of just keep that student hat on, and just get a feel for what it would be like as a student in your classroom to use Desmos. And then we'll come back and reinforce a lot of these things with that teacher perspective, so how I do some of these things or how I set them up and run them. So to do that, I'm going to need you all to go, I can't see my tabs. Here we go, to student.desmos.com, and you can type in that class code. And then I don't know if that link, if that's able to throw that into the chat. You can just also directly link that activity, or you could click in from our Google Doc where it says student link for activity. I'll give you a second to get into that activity and let us know if you have any issues getting in there. If you have an account, you're welcome to log in. If you don't have an account, just continue into the activity without signing in. That's perfectly fine for today.
And folks, you do have a clickable link in your chat if you want a direct link there.
And if you're joining us from maybe on your phone or something where it might be a little tricky, I'll kind of show on my screen in just a little bit what the participants are seeing when they go into that activity, so you can kind of follow along just with my screen. But as you get logged into that activity, you're going to be restricted to two screens that you can navigate. So just interact, answer the questions as best you can with those two screens. One screen is just going to be checking in, and then one's going to be maybe an example of something you might use in a lesson with your students. And so again, you are coming into this activity kind of pretending that you're a student, and interacting with those two screens as best you can over the next couple minutes. So again, if you're not able to get into the activity, if you just want to kind of look, these are what the two screens I'm displaying right now look like when you get into the activity. Just a little check-in where you can slide that point to the left or to the right. Add something in there, type a little response, and then the upper right-hand corner, you can navigate to screen 2. Add something about how those two images are alike, how those two images might be different. You're welcome to sketch on top of that screen and play around with some of those sketch tools. So you can think about how this screen might be helpful to you. You can be thinking about just the tools in general, how you could put a different picture there for your students and you could get them sketching on top of it.
Again, a green Toyota Prius parked in the senior parking lot. Please leave your vehicle. Thank you.
Apologize for the interruption. So just take another minute or two to familiarize yourself with those two screens. And then I'll redirect you back to my screen in just a minute. All right, so give me about 30 seconds, and I'm actually going to pause you on the activity, just as a heads up, about 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to hit the pause on you, so you will come back and look at my screen. All right, so I've paused you. You might not have gotten to everything on those two screens, but I'm going to direct you back to my screen. And so when you run an activity from Desmo's classroom with your students, you have what's called the teacher dashboard. And so that's what I'm looking at right here. And I've got kind of 4 different views I can toggle between in the upper right-hand corner. And this summary view, I get a quick look at everyone that has logged in to this activity. And when I display this, I'm going to start displaying student responses. I'm going to go ahead and anonymize this. So there's an anonymize button. You see all the names just switched to famous mathematicians. Okay, so these are mathematicians. And so now this is an anonymous mode. So as I'm sharing student work in front of everyone in the class, we don't have to worry about who's right, who's wrong. We can just focus on the math and the conversations we want to have around it. So in this summary view, like I said, I can see everyone who's logged in. I can also see what screen they're on and which screens they've interacted with so far. So I can see some, right, haven't gotten to screen 2 and interacted at all, or some are on screen 2 but haven't been able to type anything or sketch anything. So I've got that quick overview of where everyone's at, how many people are on each screen. This is where I toggled to put into anonymous mode. This is where I paused you, so I can unpause and pause because I want students to be working or maybe directing their attention towards me. And then I've also paced the first 2 screens. So we could pace everyone to a single screen, and now everyone would have to go to screen 1 when I unpause that. I can do a range of screens like I did here, 2, 3, 4, or we could not pace at all, right? So we could take pacing and we could just I could unpause this and let you work through the whole thing however you want. So we've got some great tools here to kind of manage and facilitate what's happening in the classroom. So that's the summary tab. The student tab, that's kind of the student view. So that's what students see. So if my students are just using Desmos for the first time or we're doing a new activity and I want to kind of show them how to interact, I might use the student view and say, okay, this is what you're going to see. You're going to want to toggle this back and forth, show me how you're feeling, and then you can click over here and type in your response. Or we might start by giving a little more direction in this one. You know, I want you to look at this array here, and I want you to look at these calculations, and I want you to maybe tell me what might be similar about those two, what might be different. So that student view allows me to show them what they're going to see on their screen. And then the teacher view is awesome because I can see everyone's response, and this is updating in real time as students enter it in. So I can see all of these Expect some tired, but we got a lot of excitement to be here, so that's awesome. And as we go through, I can see all those responses and individual ones. I can also do this nice overlay. So I can get a quick snapshot. We are all over the place. No one's way far over here, so that's good as far as how they're doing. We've probably got more our participants on the right side, which is awesome. So that's what I'm seeing from the teacher view. And I can go to the next screen, right? And again, start to see all these wonderful, beautiful sketches, right? The sketch is fun, right? We can draw some pictures in there as well. And I can start thinking about whose responses I want to highlight and show and talk about. So as I scroll, maybe I see an interesting picture, and I really liked this one. And I didn't give you much direction on this, so the two images they actually went through. I think what's happening here is they've actually found they're doing two different pictures here. They created their two pictures, and they created two arrays of their own within that one. And we can see that they're not the same geometric shape. So I thought that was a really interesting and unique answer that we could talk about. And then keep going. There was one trying to find. Here's another one. I liked this because they used the sketch a little bit to kind of mirror maybe what was going on here. So they're starting to make some connections between what's being calculated using that function calculator and the picture here, right? So we both have a total of 28, right? We still get to 28 in two different ways. And one is calculating, one's using the picture. So we could even maybe break that down, right? Like 7 times 2, and then all of that big one, that 14 times 2, and we can start to get students to make those connections between the two. So this was just something I pulled to try and connect to, there was a standard, I think it was a 3rd grade standard with, interpreting factors, representing those factors as equal groups, illustrating and explaining strategies using arrays or repeated addition. So things like that. So just this kind of prompt of a little more open-endedness allows a lot of student perspectives and a lot of different ways for students to think about it creatively. It gets students to make connections between those representations as well. So that's just one way we might use the calculator side by side with an array, as well as you can start to see the dashboard, which is to me just so powerful in getting all my students' responses organized to me in one spot in real time. So I can kind of navigate those screens and pick which ones I want to talk about, which ones I want to display, and lead some discussions with my students. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the pacing. I'm also going to unpause in just 1 second and let you work through the rest of this activity. So there's a few screens that you're going to come to. So this is the first one, and use that student view to show you what you'll see. And so screens, these are the wrong numbers here, but the next screen you're going to see is from a marble slides activity. So you could click, that will take you through the entire activity. I've also linked these in our agenda. And then the screen after that is from the activity called tens and ones. And then another full activity that I pulled a screen from is linked here. So you'll just go to the next 3 screens and interact with them. So here you're going to be dragging points, and when you're ready to check, you'll launch. And so if those marbles don't hit that star down there, you have not made 5. So you know you've made 5 when you hit launch and you hit that star and you have success. The next screen, you're going to just drag and you're going to create 34. There's going to be no check for you here as far as telling the student, you as the student, whether you've got that right or wrong. You're just going to drag your tens and ones into the 2 different spots to make 34. And then here you're going to do a little card sort. So you're going to try to match up the different representations. Okay, so you're going to, which ones are equivalent. And so when you drag them and drop them and they click together, that means they're matched together. So don't just put them close to each other. If you want them, if you think they're the same, you want them to click together like that. And then finally, there's going to be one more screen after that that you can play around with and interact. of trying to make each of these numbers. And so you can connect these in different ways and unconnect them. So you can kind of explore and see what's going on as you move these together and move them apart. And you're going to try to make these different numbers, and then you can type in here which number was impossible to make. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to interact with those. You're unpaused and think about the teacher perspective. Think about maybe some ways you could use these or similar features like the card sort. Maybe there's a different way you might apply the card sort in your room, in your classroom with your students. So I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to work through those screens, and then we'll come back and kind of debrief what you went over.
Hey, Nolan, if you are game, if you don't mind, if we talk for a moment as people work.
Sure.
I did hear back, you've got some colleagues with us today.
Okay.
Courtney touched base with our buddy Megan with Desmos, and we found out that yes, indeed, Mastery Connect does use Desmos as their online calculator.
Awesome.
So I answered that in the Q&A, but just to shout it out since we did address it verbally before. We've had a couple questions, Nolan, about the range of these activities. So today we're focusing on elementary. Tomorrow, Nolan's going to be back to talk about middle school and the scientific calculator. And Thursday, Nolan will be back to talk about grades 8 through high school, which is our graphing calculator. And so each webinar is kind of geared towards a grade span. So we do have lots of different content available through the Desmos platform. We're just focusing on a span each day. And then I think that's about all I can answer without, oh, one other one. Some folks were confused about these names over here in anonymized mode. Can you remind us where these names are coming from, Nolan?
Yeah, so you can even, if you see this little banner here, you can learn more about them. So when I click on that, not seeing where those are there. That takes us to the classroom conversations, but these are actual mathematicians. So if you were to Google these names, you will find that they are famous for some sort of accomplishment, discovery, or contribution to the mathematics community. So these are real people's names, but they're assigned to your name. So as I toggle back and forth, these are the names of you all, the students who have entered. And so as the teacher, as you're working, if I'm not displaying this right now in front of everyone in the class, I'm kind of monitoring, watching. I'll keep it like this. But then when I go and we want to have a discussion centered around student work, I'll throw that into an anonymous mode. And so those are just those kind of fake names. So if I use someone's incorrect answer, because a lot of times I might start with some incorrect answers because we can learn a lot from those answers and have some really rich discussions around them. But we don't want students to feel embarrassed, or we don't want students to be nervous as they're working that they're going to be called out in front of everyone. So we can use these anonymous names as we're displaying student work.
Awesome. And we did have a note that the tens ones is not working. If you could check the link on that one.
Okay, I will double check that one and update it for you all. Let me write that down.
And then also, Nolan, maybe not now, but before we leave, if you could talk a minute about some folks had already created Desmos accounts, and I guess they checked the grade levels that they assumed that would be the ones they would want to see activities for. But if they want to go back in and change that after the fact, can you show us where they would be able to do that to expand their grade levels?
Sure.
And we did get a note regarding the tens and ones that you just need to click and drag on the black circle and it works.
Okay, the screen works. I think what they're saying is the link to the activity probably doesn't work.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'll check that out in just a minute. All right, so I'm not going to pause you this time, but if you want to come back to my screen just real quick, we'll kind of wrap this one up. So there's a little more you can see now from my end on the teacher dashboard. And so I can see now you're a little more spread out, right? I can see students are maybe working a little bit faster, some are working a little bit slower. I can see maybe who needs some support. If there's some check marks or X's, those are ones where there's a clear kind of right or wrong. There was no check on the 34. So this is giving me that quick snapshot as students are working so I can kind of know and prioritize as I navigate around the room. It's definitely an adjustment to run an activity with students, right? Because you've got this dashboard here, but you don't want to be parked behind your computer. So I usually kind of check in here a little bit, pick some students that I want to go and help, and then kind of come back and check in with the dashboard again. One thing that works really well too is one screen, two students. So if you have every student on their own, for me, it's too quiet in my classroom. Like I want the students talking to each other, interacting, and you're less likely to get students that maybe get stuck completely themselves. So most of my activities, I have students, two students per one screen. So they're talking back and forth as they're interacting with the screen. So again, what I love here is I can see when I go to that teacher view instead of the summary view, I can see all the different answers. And so I can also make use of this last thing I haven't talked about, which is snapshots. This is kind of a next level move where, you might not have time when you're first learning the dashboard to balance this, but I can select different ones like, oh, I might want these two to be together and compare and contrast because I love the commutative property here. So I'm going to select those two and I can just quickly hit present. And now I could pause my students and say, all right, everyone look up here. Look at these two. What do you notice? What's similar? What's different? Right? And so we can talk about 3 and 2, same thing as 2 and 3. That order doesn't matter. I can save that album if I want. And that's where it would be for my snapshots here. I could come to it at any point I wanted to. And back in that teacher view, maybe I'm done with those. Maybe I want to look at 5 and 0. Do we have any? We don't have, there's the 4 and 1, right? And so we could look at all the different ways that we can make 5, and I can celebrate those and put them up and compare, right? So snapshots is a really powerful tool. Again, I don't always have time to collect them. A lot of times I'm just using the teacher view and saying, oh, let's talk about this one. And I can load it up and make it bigger and talk about this student's work. And then I can go and find another student's work and click on it and talk about it. Or, right, we talk about maybe taking an incorrect answer. How could we correct this, or what would we need to add to make this, or change to make this make 5? And so we could lead the discussion based off of that one. The 34, right? The overlay, that's kind of crazy, but we can look at the individual responses to get a quick glance if the students are moving those in the correct spots. The card sort, I can show correctness, so I can get a quick overview of which students got it, which students haven't started maybe yet, or aren't actually connecting their cards together. And then the last one, again, I can look at each individual response and maybe I want to display it for our discussion or just check for my own personal information here to see where we need to have some discussions. All right, so just kind of coming back from and thinking about that dashboard, really those tools in the dashboard support, if you're familiar with the 5 practices for orchestrating productive mathematics discussion. These tools are designed with these specifically in mind, right? So we're gonna create things and as we're creating our lesson, we're anticipating our student responses, the monitoring, right? We've got that dashboard right there. It's working in real time. It's putting all the student responses together for me. I don't have to walk around and kind of start collecting just by watching. I can see them all right there. And then for me, what the really powerful thing is that I can select, I can sequence them. I can start planning which ones I want to go over and in what order. And then we can display it And, I like to think about, we're putting the student thinking on the stage, right? So it's not my thinking, it's the student's thinking that's going up on the stage. And we're able to start making those connections through the student work and the student thinking. Right, so here was an example again that we saw where we might compare and contrast some of those 10 frames. Here's another, this was not a screen you had, but here's an example of where they were able to sketch kind of, okay, count these, how did you count them? Or what are the different ways, we can come up with 24 and we can start making the connections between the different strategies that the students come up with. And it's all there in one spot for us to display and lead our discussion around. I love the question, who's right, who's wrong, especially when both students are right or multiple students are right, but in different ways. So then you get students, analyzing and talking about other students' work. It's not you doing that, you're leading the discussion. Or for this one, I might say, are these strategies the same or are they different? Okay, so the 5/8, right, it looks a little bit different. This one has a little less information as far as all the tick marks, right? But they have more information as far as labeling with the numbers nicely. This one has more of the tick marks, but it doesn't have it labeled. So we could start to kind of see or get the students to see and make the connection that, yeah, they split these up into 8ths, right? So they started counting by 8ths and breaking up those gaps that were counting by halves. The other thing I like about the dashboard is the idea of starting with, wrong answers and just finding interesting, answers in ways that students might have thought, even if it's not the way we were expecting. So a student's wrong answer is most often the right answer to a different but related question. So that's a quote from Marilyn Burns. So a lot of times I'll select student work and I'll display it for my students and I'll put it back on them and I'll ask them to change the question so that this student is correct, right? So there's some powerful opportunities to get everyone thinking a little more deeply and in different ways when we pull up a wrong answer and maybe just put it back on our students. So could you change the question so that this is now a correct answer? So with that dashboard, you've got, just a summary here of the different views and the different tools, the anonymize, the pace, the pausing that are going to help you facilitate these discussions with your students in the activities. It's really about using the dashboard to create discourse around student thinking and their creativity. And so what I want to do briefly here, we don't have a ton of time, but just introduce you to where these activities can be found, as well as I'm just not going to build from scratch necessarily an activity, but we could copy and paste activities and screens so that you could get started with some of these things yourself. So if we go to, or if I go to teacher.desmos.com, and everything I'm doing here is supported with a lot of links in the agenda that I'll show you in just a minute so that you can go back and kind of work at your own pace as you explore and try to find different activities. So when we go to the landing page, we can search by topic. Okay, so you could search up here, fractions, and you can get different activities that we could explore. There are also collections, and I'm going to go to featured collections. And one of the collections that is there is elementary grades. And I linked directly to this from the Google Doc agenda that I shared with you. But we can go to elementary grades. And so these are designed, as you can see, for 3rd to 5th grade classrooms. And so you can preview it. If I click on, I'm going to go to decimal challenge. I'm going to click on that activity. And each activity has kind of its own home page. And we can preview it as the student. So we could go through and interact with this activity as the student and see if it's something we want to do. And as you're interacting, you might notice there's some notes here, some teacher moves. So if this is an activity you end up using, this is really, really helpful in planning, especially as you're getting used to using a Desmos activity. And it gives you also some sample responses to think about as you move through. So those are really helpful tips that have been provided for you. If this is an activity you want to run, you can create an activity session. I have some old ones here that were never used, but I can assign this if I've created a class for my students, or I can just create a single session code. And when I create that invite, now there's the code, just like you all entered. I can go to the dashboard, and you'll see the dashboard just like we saw, so we can share this with students, or we can get students to enter in that code themselves.
Nolan, if we can ask a question here. We've had a few questions pop up about learning management systems. Can teachers add these activities to something like Google Classroom or Canvas?
Yes, so these are linked, you can link directly through Google Classroom. So when you set up your classes, let me see if we go. We add a new class. So these are my classes I've created, but you would have nothing here and you could go through and add a new class. You can import from Google Classroom. So you can have Google Classroom and Desmos talk to each other directly. And you can learn more about that right here. So that was going, again, I went a little quick there from Desmos Classroom. If I go to classes and add new class, so I can import from Google Classroom and learn more about that with that link here. Otherwise, like I don't use Google Classroom, I can just create my own class name and have students join that class. And anytime they log into their account, they'll see all the activities. So like my geometry class, they'll have all these activities when they go to their own account when they log into student.desmos.com.
So that would be maybe if so if you use a different learning management system than Google Classroom, you can you can just direct the kids to your Desmos classroom.
Yep, you could just have a link there. You could also just do, if you wanted to do a single session code, and then you could just post that link if you wanted, would be another way. If you, the student link here, you could just post that to whatever your learning management system was, and that would take them directly to that activity.
All right, well, that gets us current on questions.
Okay. So I'm going to do a little bit longer since we've been hitting some of these questions on the way, but we've set up, we can see how we can set up maybe a little bit of classes, or you have an overview of that. The other thing we can do is we can copy and edit an activity. So in the upper right-hand corner here, there's 3 dots. Sharing just means I could maybe send this to another teacher and say, hey, check this activity out, or I could save this in my lesson plans. I know I use Google Docs for my lesson plans. I always link the different activities, the home page here. But if I copy and edit, this takes me to kind of the layout for building an activity. So you can see the different screens of the activity. So I could go in and maybe there's some vocabulary that I wanted to change, or I could delete out a screen, or I could add a screen and start to build. So I could edit an activity that's already there. Here it's defaulting its name to copy of. So if I click on that, I can change that name. You know, maybe I have a certain numbering lesson or whatever that I use to label where this is going to fall with my curriculum. I can also enable a calculator to show up. So maybe I want my students to be able to use the 4-function calculator in the activity. So that was, again, if I click up here, I can change the name and I can add or enable the calculator. So what that means is if I go to preview, this is what the student will see. They won't see the teacher moves, but they'll see this is how they're interacting with the activity. And they could pull up that 4-function calculator within that activity. So they won't have to open up another tab. And then the last thing I'm just going to show is that I can copy and paste a screen from another activity. So in today's activity, there was that kind of check-in screen. So here's some other favorite starter screens, or in Desmos, there are some starter screens here. There's a collection. So screens for checking in. That's where I got this screen right here. So this is where I'm going to go to the student preview. And if this is the screen I want to copy and paste, there's a little icon up here to copy this screen. And then I can go back to my activity and I'm going to hit Control V. So you can't see me with my keyboard, but I'm hitting Control V and it's pasting that screen in there and I can reorder it and throw that at the front. So again, I went to another activity, starter screens that Desmos had in their collection. And I could do that with any screen of any activity. And I copy it from the preview and then Control V to paste it into my activity. Once I'm ready, I'm going to hit Publish. And now my copy of this activity, which is a different version, is ready for me if I want to assign to my students. I can also add it to my own collection, so you can create different tags or collections so that you know where those are when you want to come back to them.
Nolan, we have a
Yeah.
new question.
Sure.
Are there any resources on Desmos in Spanish for teachers who teach in Spanish?
Yes, so some of the activities are in Spanish for you. So let me find, I had that link. Don't know if I put it in the agenda. But I believe if they're in there's Spanish, there's a couple other languages, you would see a link for that version in here. I need to get the link that will take you to all the information about that. I did not have that in the agenda like I should have, but yes, there are some activities that have been translated in Spanish for students. So you could assign that for them. All right, so we went through just to kind of summarize and take any last minute questions of the calculator specific to North Carolina, all those links here that will take you to that PDF that will take you to the exact version for North Carolina. The student link from today's activities here, as well as the teacher link, you can copy and paste any of those screens that you might want to use in your own activity. The elementary collection and some favorite starters. Those links are here for you as you get started. My suggestion would be, use what's out there. We can search within Desmos. You can just do a general Google search as well for different activities, Desmos activities and topics. And then if you're going to build something, I would do kind of like a warm up or a closing cool down activity. Just 1 or 2 screens is usually super helpful just to get you comfortable with it, the students comfortable with it, and kind of jumping in there of how you might use the dashboard there. Do you have a survey that Beth can throw into the chat for you all to answer, or you can click directly from the Google link here, or Google Doc here. The general resources here for you that are really helpful, the help.desmos.com, that's kind of your go-to. There are additional webinars and professional development opportunities through that link, as well as a YouTube page. Some more about the accessibility and also the recent joining of forces with Amplify, if you want to read about that. And that polypad, that last screen you saw, was used in the activity, was used with polypad, where we were creating those factors and multiplication. So you can learn more about polypad there. If you haven't created your account yet, there's information there. And then I've broken it down to kind of teaching with Desmos and building with Desmos. So as you want to familiarize yourself with more of the dashboard tools, someone was asking about the anonymize, the pausing and pacing, if you wanted to learn more about that, there's all links there for you to explore. And then these are some quick videos. Some of them I made, some of them were already made by Desmos themselves, but just kind of, beginning to build an activity will take you kind of step by step, because you didn't see a lot of how those different components were put into the activity that was created, but you could take your time with that as you're ready to start to build your. And then any questions at all, and you have support at desmos.com there for you. to use, and you can also use my email to reach out with any questions that you have.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm not seeing any. We did have a large group today, but again, I'm not seeing any unanswered questions, which is great. I'm going to grab the screen back from you, Nolan, to go over just a little bit of cleanup before we head out today. All right. Hopefully you are seeing. Let's try that again. All right, there you go. Today's webinar has been recorded, and we will post it to the website probably next week. Anyone who registered, whether you logged in or not, if you registered, you will get an email. The only caveat is check, because last year I got in trouble. I sent too many email addresses, or I sent too many emails. It'll come from the NC Public Schools listserv. So I will download the email addresses of everyone who registered. The sender will be NC Public Schools, and it will have a link to the recording. It will have all the links that Nolan shared with us today, the agenda, the slide deck, the North Carolina calculator. It'll also have a slide of the screen grab of how students can enter mixed numbers. Here is our contact information. Again, I'm Beth Nash. I focus mostly on middle school and high school, but I'm happy to help you as well. Michael Mahoney is our elementary school contact, and here is Nolan's. And otherwise, we're 60 seconds over. So we'll hope you forgive us for that. We appreciate your time. We are here if you need us, and thanks for giving us your afternoon, guys. Bye.
Yes, thank you all for your time, and thank you, Beth.